today's video, I want to talk to you about this watch. I call it the Greek philosopher's watch. If you're unfamiliar with the story of the Greek philosopher's ship, the basic story is this. There was a ship that presumably served well in a naval action, and they wanted to preserve it for posterity as a historical museum ship. And so over time, as the planks would rot, they would replace a plank, or maybe replace some of the running rigging, or replace a sail. And at some point, the last original plank was replaced. So the philosophical question is it still the same ship? And if it's not, at what point did it cease to be the same ship? Well, we'll start by taking a close look at this watch, and you'll understand why I refer to my wristwatch as the Greek philosopher's watch. Now this is the Omega Speedmaster Professional, and I bought this back in the wild and woolly days of the internet when it was first started. I bought it in 1997. I just graduated from college, and I always wanted one of these. This was a historical watch. If you look on the back of it, you'll see it's engraved, and it says it was the first watch worn on the moon. This was the wristwatch that the astronauts were authorized to wear, and so it really is officially the first watch worn on the moon. And I bought it from a guy on a forum. It was actually a time zone forum, and this was long before eBay and Craigslist and other such things as that. And so you would meet some guy on the internet in a forum and exchange phone numbers or something like that, or emails, and next thing you know, you're buying something wondering if it'll ever show up. And when I eventually had it serviced years later, Omega told me the serial number because it's inside. You can't see it without taking it apart. And that identified it as a watch that was made in 1976, which is kind of cool. The guy who I bought it from services watches, and he had serviced it himself. And it ran for several years. I was quite happy with it. But at some point, then I had to send it into Omega to get it serviced. And therein lies the story. Here's the watch. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking with a friend of mine at work, and we were chatting, and I showed him this watch, and I said, this is really the Greek philosopher's wristwatch. And he didn't know what I meant, and I explained the idea of the ship. And then I told him, they replaced almost everything on this. Let me show you. And so the next day, I brought in these plastic baggies that had all the parts. And he thought that was really amazing, and we had a good laugh about it. So I decided to make this video and just show exactly how much of this watch was replaced. Soon after I bought it, I realized that I didn't like the original watch band, the bracelet. It was stretched out and missing a link or two, perhaps. It didn't fit my thick wrists. And so I contacted the original guy some months later, and he had some modern Omega bracelets that were made with solid links. That's what's on it right now. I bought a new bracelet, and I replaced the original bracelet. So you can see that right here. I'm going to open this. So there is the original bracelet. You can see it's not bad. It's not in terrible shape. It's a little bit stretched out, and it's too short really for my wrists. The next thing happened, which was I shipped it off to Omega to get serviced. So when you ship a watch off to Omega, you got to understand that you were kissing it goodbye for the better part of a year. Maybe 6 months later, you'll get a letter telling you all the things they think need to be fixed and how much it'll cost. And you totally forgot you had sent it to them by that time. Then they do the work, and you eventually will get your watch back. And that's what happened here. The thing that was pretty amazing, though, was the amount of work they did. So let me just open this bag. So of course, every time they do service, they replace the crystal, and then maybe the bezel, and why not replace the dial while you're at it? Then, of course, the pushers, along with a little gasket. Then why not a handful of gears? And then this was the part that really made me laugh. Well, that looks like a pretty substantial piece of the movement. As far as I'm concerned, almost all of this watch has been replaced, with the singular exception of the case. We have a brand new crystal, we have a brand new dial, brand new bezel. They've replaced this, or whatever this thing is called. It's pretty heavy. They replaced all these gears and bits and bobs that are in here. I don't see any hands, so these are probably the original hands. But they've replaced 98% of the watch. So this truly is the Greek philosopher's wristwatch. And I had it serviced again, and so we have yet another crystal. So there it is. So there's a twist on the Greek philosopher's ship that goes like this. Suppose there was some guy that was collecting all the pieces of the original ship, all the worn out pieces as they threw them out. And he took them home and he used them to carefully put together another ship. So maybe the sails had holes in them and maybe the boards had shipworms in them and things like that, but he still put them together. And at some point he had all the pieces and he had an original ship that was all tatty and everything. Now what do you have? Which one's the ship? Is it the one that's in the harbor that has all the new pieces, or is it the one that the guy has put together from all the cast-offs? Well, I submit I could put together an identical watch with all the cast-offs from this one if I had a case. It's kind of a fun thing. I got a laugh out of this. So that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching.